It is fourth time, fifth time. We've talked a few times now.
Well, I don't want to bore the listener. Four times for sure.
Yes,
Um,
perhaps fifth, perhaps fifth. Delighted to
yeah,
be
fifth.
talking once more with Dr. Rick Olson. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Always
And,
great to
one-
talk with you.
and next time makes a six pack.
That's right, the six pack edition. That's right. I will work on my six pack in preparation for that, but no promises. No promises at all.
That's a six pack in the refrigerator, six pack on your abdomen.
The abdomen, yes. So if it was the fridge, we could that would be doable, but we'll
Okay.
see. We'll see.
All right. Very,
Yes.
very good.
Yes. Well, I see Zorro over your shoulder, so perhaps that's a good place to sort of expand out because we're looking at sort of the visual pantheon of what you've created. So, tell us about the pulp world, Douglas Kaluba and Zorro, and then maybe we can sort of travel from there into what is next.
Well, a blast from the past. My story for Zorro is about 1830, and my editor, who I'm actually a hybrid author, so some are published and some are self-published. And she says, submit a story. You know the editor. Hint, hint. So I did a story called Outfoxed by a Woman, and Zorro means fox. So it was a blast to write. So a woman gets the, upper hand on Zorro, and it's called a romance episode. So they're all romance stories. And Zorro's from Chillicothe, Illinois. And people say, where is that? It's 15 miles north of Peoria on the Illinois River. So that's an absolute pleasure to write Zorro in the 1830s. And moving forward 100 years, I write Nick Still, private investigator, set in 1930s Peoria. And the third book came out last Christmas, and that is the Doug Kaluba. Wait, do this backwards and not in a mirror.
Mm-hmm, hmm.
um, it's Peoria versus Hollywood Night, and it's a blast. Basically, his high school girlfriend becomes a famous Hollywood actress and gets accused of murder. So he flies out to Hollywood in 1938 to see if she's guilty or not. And I do not make any pretense she is innocent. So it's quite a wild adventure on that one. And then moving another 100 years into the future, 2030s about, I have a new book called We Stand Against the World. And
Hmm.
that's the book we're going to focus on today. And the hero of that book everybody likes the word protagonist. You notice how that in the last 5 years, that's everywhere. Even AI, the protagonist of this story is. So anyway, he's a former Border Patrol agent in the first book and does rescue the President of the United States from a attacking Asian army in a church. And the second book is obviously a sequel, and the President of the United States is in that book. Now, I like to time jump quite a bit and literally not through a time machine. So the story starts out in March 1945, trivia
Hmm.
buffs. Basically, the year, Germany gave up and Hitler did himself in. And the submarine, or Underboat, or how does a joke is another word. Anyway, the U-boat goes to Central America, goes up a flooded river, comes to a stop, and they pull out a baby, and that baby is Hitler's baby. And then boom, flash forward 90 years, and my story starts. So it was kind of fun writing the segue like that. And then 90 years later, you wonder, what could those Mayans and Nazis have been doing for 90 years? Quite a bit.
Hmm.
So then the President of the United States is kidnapped again. And I promise the readers this will not happen in the third book. So our hero is sent as basically a private consultant to Central America to find the president. And it's my longest book, 470 pages. My editor says the best book I wrote. I did have a joy writing it. It has a big James Bond blow up ending with volcanoes and explosions and anything you can imagine. And then I have an extra tag at the end to tease the reader. So We Stand Against the World is Scott Lund. I think this is kind of on the back cover, but he battles the antagonist, which is Hitler's great great grandchildren and they're twins, a guy and a woman. So that's the villains of the story. Hitler's great grandchildren or great great greater. You guys count the generations, okay? So he gets to save the world and literally save the world from a bubonic red death plague that can disseminate 90% of the population. So that's a pretty wild adventure, to be honest. And then just to have lots and lots of fun, I've always wanted to write a Tarzan book. So he
Wow.
has a jungle adventure and he might fight a snake, he might fight a jaguar, he might fight. So there's a good 100-page Tarzan story involved and it gets pretty wild. He also has a team in this book. Um, one, two, three, four agents. And I don't want to say much about them, but at least one of them does die. And
Hmm.
this is a reverse tease. Originally, I wrote the book, I was gonna have them all get killed off. And I started liking the doggone characters.
That happens, right? That
So I
happens.
didn't kill them all off, but at least one does die. So you're turning it back, Mr. Jason or Professor Jason.
What was the character that you decided to end? Was that one of your favorites as well, or were you like, ah, this guy, okay, or we'll just excuse him from the party?
Ooh, I might like that. I think we did excuse him from the party.
Yes.
Yeah, he did. For any of the readers who are familiar with Doc Savage, they're the Man of Bronze. There is a Doc Savage component in the book, and two of the characters actually fight each other like Monk and Ham do in the Doc Savage books. Cheech is a Mexican buddy of Scott ever since they joined the Border Patrol, and then they bring in Ava, a technology linguist, because obviously who speaks Mayan in today's world, and they fight like cats and dogs. It's hysterical. He teases her and teases her and teases her. But nobody's sacred to the writer's pen. The dot of, well, in this case, a dot of the computer and blah, 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 and they can die. So that's kind of calling a mean tease, I guess, to the reader, but it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah. Those are sort of the stakes of some of these stories, and you always feel good when characters continue to exist, but there is that part of it that when the stakes are high, some of them have to go. Some of them have to go.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta crack a couple eggs to make an omelet.
Yes, yes. Now you start out in the 1940s, you're jumping through time. So I imagine there's some history that lives in your mind as a history buff. But then to the other side of that coin, how do you envision kind of the future? What's that process like for you?
Well, that's always wonderful because of the imagination. And somewhere I have a Nick Still science fiction story, um, basically totally outlined where he might see an ancestor 100 years from the future. So I kind of had that in my brain too. I believe in realism. I mean, a lot of people like horror and fantasy and dragons, and that's all fun, but my stories can happen. My stories can all happen. So the near future is not too far off. They might use a newer gun like an XM7, um, instead of an older gun, so to speak. So there's a few newer guns in it, our latest model guns. Maybe the Corvette's a C9 when only C8 Corvettes are out. So I don't go too far into realism. I try to make it pretty believable, but I make it fresh.
You've got a character here, or a couple of characters, I guess, who are kind of these would be the seat of evil, right? If you're looking back at the past century, I mean, Hitler was the seat of evil and racism to the extreme and dictatorial control. Um, what are the ingredients for these antagonists? How do you come up with them?
Well, I have a pretty wild imagination. Sometimes people say, "Do you run out of ideas for stories?" I have 20 stories already, just outlined, totally ready to go. Um, I try to believe someone in this case, what I call lineage in genetics. The great 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 grandson is called Adolf, and his twin sister is called Clara. And do you know where Clara came from?
That name is familiar, but it's been a minute, so
It's
please
it's
remind
the
me.
name of Hitler's mother,
Ah, I see.
her first name.
Hmm.
So again, that bounds in reality, and they are actually part Mayan by now. I mean, they're not pure German if they've been breeding with Mayans for 90 years. So I like the word plausible, and then probably here's a weird term, light fantastic. So they
Hmm.
have plausible roots, and if you guys are on a mission, like okay, let's do things. They're going to be 90 years of development, plotting, organization, a spider web network around the world or whatever. So I try to make them actually believable. So when you read them, it's like the reader can really buy in. Like, what if? What if this has happened? What if it's a secret organization trying to take over that nobody knew about? And then, kind of a fun thing is I throw myself under the bus. Like, how do I do these things? So, he goes to the Yucatan Peninsula, which I've been several times. I've been at Belize and, I've been there quite a few times. I also speak medium Spanish. So how do you find a needle in a haystack? How do you go to a jungle and anywhere in 1,000 miles the president could be? So that's the pressure I put upon myself. Maybe one book I write, just a huge death climax, finale, and I don't know how it's going to end up. So the next day I'm going like, oh no, then aha. So I forced myself to react. And I had a lot of fun in this book because, it's literally a needle in a haystack. So how do you do this and how do you do that? And how does this lead to there? And does that lead to there? And maybe the bad guys are watching the good guys. So it's very plausible. They don't just like walk into a secret empire unnoticed. I mean, that doesn't really happen. Or if it is, they're not going to be a very secret empire very long, right? So I try to make things plausible, and then, like I said, I'll throw myself right into the fire and see how I would escape or write an escape.
So I'm detecting notes of Ian Fleming, sort of the Moonraker, science fiction side of that. So maybe a little Fleming meets Flash Gordon, plus Doc Savage, plus Zorro, lots of pulp influences. What else is in the bouquet that I might be missing?
Wow. Well, we did mention Tarzan,
Hmm. Hmm.
and for nobody out there will know there's a character called Key Gore, who's a Tarzan in the 40s in the pulp magazines. And
Oh,
I'm a
okay.
big, you've heard of Key Gore then?
Hmm.
They're reprinting them in soft bound and hardback right now, the Jungle Stories. So there's some Key Gore in there. But I think you pretty much nailed it on the head. Those that's a lot of representations of characters and where are what we read. So when you grow up and you read this and read that and read Edgar Rice Burroughs, the Mars series, the Tarzan series, I think they kind of subconsciously stick to you and you form them. But I think that would probably be quite a few characters and authors to honor and place in this story. There is a third story, and it's going to be MA. The third Scott Lund, I call them Super Adventures, is all about cartels and opioids and synthetic opioids, and it's my most mature book. I even have real torture scenes in it. And the first Scott Lund has an evil Chinese colonel, so he might show up. But right now, Scott Lund's on a five-book story arc. So about 2,000 pages and five stories. And the fourth novel takes him to Sweden, and the fifth novel takes him to South Africa. And again, maybe the evil colonel shows up again. So this is gonna accidentally be a perfect segue into young adult stories. And you ask, why?
That was the segue. Absolutely. Yeah. YA, because why YA?
Well, it's pretty funny.
Thank you.
Scott Lund has a nephew and niece, Zach and Zoe Lund. And the first YA book is out, which is actually two novels. And to regress just a little bit, I had a real family meeting and I said, okay, Scott Lund's got a brother, which has been a few flashbacks of a few of the first books. And what would his wife do? What would his daughter be like? What would his son or nephew and niece be like? So my family did this, and they voted that his brother would be Forest Park Ranger,
Hmm.
Stephen, and the wife is a veterinarian. In fact, this is funny. She's an exotic animal veterinarian. That's actually a term. I told one of my friends, and he heard the word exotic and went, her name's Dr. Her name's Lorelei. They call her Dr. Lori, and she flies all around the world, with sick animals. And then the boy does martial arts and motocross racing. And I got some patients when I was a doctor, and I got twins who were top motocross racers in the country, like top 30 or 40 in the country. So they helped me. And then the girl, oh my goodness. And then the girl, she does some dancing, some jujitsu, and she just loves animals as much as her mother, which is my daughter. My daughter will walk up to a bobcat and think it's her friend. And I'm not joking. She was in horses the other day and she's just fearless. I mean, so anyway, that created a great cast. And then to keep it tight, my son Rand created a story outline, Mystery Among the Trees. And they go on vacation to California. And the kids go to the bathroom and they see a dead body. So they go back and tell the parents about it. And then guess what? There's no body, right?
Hmm.
But they
So some
find the
mystery
badge,
involved.
but they find the badge of an FBI agent.
Hmm.
And the governor of California's kids get kidnapped. And then my daughter was the ultimate adventure. Um, Dr. Lori and the daughter Zoe go to Mexico with their pet dog, a collie, and have a wild adventure with sinkholes and sand traps and quicksand and just wild stuff. And she would write everything. I'd say, "Where do they go for dinner?" She says, "Pizza tonight," or "Italian tonight," or so she's totally directing the storyline. And that's been out maybe 2 years, but this segues into me being a grandfather. And
Hmm.
my grandson says, "Grandpa, I want to do a story." I'm listening. He said, "What if we all go up to Grandpa's cabin in Canada, and the next morning Grandpa's kidnapped and we're stranded in the cabin with nowhere to go?" So that's I'm chapter 13 of that book. It's called The Mysterious Lodge. And they're off the grid, so the cell phones don't work. And all I'm going to say is there's Scott's nephew, Zach and Zoe, and then their cousin, Archer, decide to go for a crazy walk for help. So, of course, they gets lost in Canada's deep woods. But they find Bigfoot, and Zoe, of course, becomes friends with Bigfoot, and he takes them back to the cabin. And
Hmm.
that's like all the first six chapters. So I'm working on that one right now. That should hopefully be out by the end of the year. So that's my third young adult story. So they're not much, they're not very less boring than the main Scott Lund books, but they're just a blast to write. And
Sounds. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. I'd say you probably have all kinds of comments about young adults and situations. And I mean, these were, meaning in how do they fight fear, how they fight being alone, how they overcome these obstacles. I do not let the adults rescue the kids in these stories. The kids figure it out. The
Yeah,
kids,
have to find their agency.
yeah, because it's like, what fun is there? They go in there and then Scott flies in and kicks everybody's butt and saves the day, Uncle Scott. So I make the kids figure this out. I try to make them learning lessons for kids too.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you definitely have a writing routine. It sounds like with the amount that you generate, there's some nice focus and scheduling involved in this, as well as family.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, let's go with that. That's an understatement. Um, for you people who could be writers or want to be light writers, I'm going to ask this question, and I'm sure Jason knows it. How do you eat an elephant?
Hmm. Anyone? Anyone out there? Anyone? One bite at a time.
Right. So if you really write 2 pages a day, that's 700 pages a year.
Yeah.
And today I wrote a page and a half, but some days, Sunday I don't write at all. I go to church and do all that fun stuff, and I don't write. But 1 to 3 pages a day, and that's only 2, 3 books a year.
Hmm.
People look at the elephant as insurmountable. How can I write a 400-page book? And one bite at a time.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So you have Nick Steele, you have um, young adult work on the way. Anything else that is part of the collective creative cloud that you're currently circling?
Ah, yes, indeed. I started a fourth series. I can't hide anything from this guy. I tell you, how do your students handle you?
Just the best they can. Just the best they can.
It's kind of like, being a teen, you're trying to go get a trick from your mom. It's like, doesn't happen very often. Um, yes, I have started a fourth series and already completed the first book, and it's a cyber spy murder mystery book. Um, these are probably small towns. Davenport, Iowa. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of Iowa. I have heard of Iowa.
And should I even tell you what Iowa stands for?
What is that?
Idiots out wandering around.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Had not heard that. I don't know Davenport though.
I grew up on the Illinois side. There's a place called the Quad Cities. I'll make this fairly quick. Four towns, two in Illinois, two in Iowa. Davenport's over 100,000 people. Mississippi River divides them, which is, of course, one of the biggest rivers in the world. And on this mighty river is a government arsenal, and they call it Arsenal Island. Have you ever heard of that?
Somewhere before, but please refresh me.
It's infamous for its Civil War prisoner camp.
Mm,
They actually built it during the Civil War as a national arsenal. So if you were a prisoner sent to Arsenal Island, you might not live long. They would feed, literally drop off a wagon full of food once a week in the bitter cold and the rapids of the river. About 1 out of 3 prisoners died.
mm.
So anyway, it's a huge island. There's 3 islands in the Quad Cities, and I lived on Campbell's Island after another battle of 1812, Captain John Campbell. I lived there for 6 years. So that was a pickup line. Hey, babe, you want to come to my island? Well, I really lived on an island. My parents had a couple boats at marinas. They decided it would be cheaper to buy like kind of a river shack and keep the boats on some docks on the island. So I grew up in there, but I went to Davenport, Iowa because that's the oldest chiropractic college in the world, Palmer Chiropractic College. So I went to school there. And the new series on Arsenal Island, and it's gonna be kind of like a TV series. It's Nancy Nash, a Rock Island female police homicide detective, and then Captain Ron Carroll, who's an army captain on the island from Georgia. And they find a murderer on the bank, and that brings them in together to stop this cyber spy network. And I'm going to call it Carroll and Nash. Does that have a
Nice,
ring to it?
nice.
It has a
That
ring, doesn't
definitely
it?
has a ring. Very classic, like mystery pairing ring. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
My dad's middle name was Carroll, Carroll. So that book is actually done, and I'm self-editing it right now, about halfway through. And I'm actually kind of hoping that might be more towards a TV series. And that's kind of like oil and water. She's a Yankee, and she's a police detective, and he's a Southerner and a captain, and you know,
Yes.
and that was solely fun. And one of my friends is actually head of a cybersecurity division of Caterpillar. And then one of my friend's grandson actually does cybersecurity in Arsenal Island. I'm like, what? I was talking to him and he's like, well, my grandson does cybersecurity at Arsenal Island. So I have like really good intel. I mean,
Nice.
I try not to make it crazy difficult for the average reader, but whether it's open source information or whatever, I have this really great intel for the book, and second book's already outlined, so it'll be my fourth series. And then in my spare time, I get to talk to wonderful people like you.
Absolutely. Talking about the things. I know that you are always busy and always creating. Where can people find out more and follow along?
Okay, I have three Facebook pages, but my author page is simply my name, Dr. Richard A. Olson, author. And it's crazy. There's like 20 Rick and Richard Olsons that write. There's even another Dr. Olson that writes. My website would be in all small letters, drrichardaolson.com, which is advantage. And then basically the Google world's kind of fun because it has all kinds of stuff, me being a doctor, an acupuncturist, me being a story writer. I just had an article not that long ago in Illinois State University, their digital magazine, Bradley University's magazine. So these all show up on Google. That's why I said Google's kind of fun.
Mhm.
But Amazon's great too. And if you do Amazon, just click the follow button, just like you would click the like button. And you have to have so many followers for certain levels of advertising and stuff. So we're working hard on this and having lots of fun and enjoying every minute of it.
Fantastic, fantastic. I know that you create widely. Always glad to have you here. Final question is, you've written Zorro. Have you thought about writing something in the world of the Crimson Clown, which is the other character created by the creator of Zorro in the pulp world?
Johnston McCauley is the author. It's an unusual name, and he graduated this little town of 9,000 people, 6,000 people, 1901. He did several characters. He was prolific. I think there's even a spider type character, and you get an A
Hmm.
plus for the Crimson Crown. One of my friends, Pete Poplaski, is the number one Zorro fan in the world. He donated most of his stuff for the Zorro Museum, and he does a deal where he actually puts on like kind of like cardboard mask and does the Johnston McCauley's characters, and
Nice, nice.
and he has like six characters. And Johnston McCauley was a rock star in the pulp world.
Yeah,
I mean, Zorro
still
came
is as
out.
far as I'm concerned. Still is.
Yeah, Zorro came out in 1919, so he'd been writing for 15 years or so. And I could have a whole blurb on the Zorro, how it got started. The fastest thing I could say is Douglas Fairbanks did the first silent movie for young pups. And he contacts Johnston. He says, where's the next book? I want to do another movie. And Johnston's like, it was going to be a one-shot deal.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for the actor and his son, Johnson, yeah, Douglas Fairbanks Jr. was another famous actor. Zorro would have been one shot and forgotten. I mean, he just would have
You
been one
go.
and done. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Prime did a TV series about Zorro in the film The Canary Islands. It was fantastic. And they alluded to a sequel, second season, and never saw that happen, unfortunately. So I wonder about the copyright for Crimson Crown. You're gonna have to make me do, you made me do research. You know that, don't you? I'm gonna call my publisher and say, and maybe I wouldn't be the first one to do that. But yeah, very good knowledge to know that.
Nice, nice. Yeah, well, these characters live on, and may the same be true for Nick Steele. May that be part of the new generation of pulp or whatever the future decides to call what's being written right now. But I love that lineage of storytelling. So a shout out to you for continuing in that way.
Well, I endorse things old and new. And I suggest for the young folk to embrace the past, to learn from it. And if
Hmm.
we learn from the past, we don't have to make or repeat the same mistakes.
Very true. Very true. On those words of wisdom, I will say thank you for another lovely chat, and certainly glad to have you back here anytime to talk storytelling.
Well, I will make a comeback for my new series, Carol and Nash. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Anytime.